Before we kind of get started talking about hoops and stuff, I want to congratulate Coach Greeny and the volleyball team on their start, making history. That's awesome. Wish them the best as they get ready to start Big 12 play. I think they're at Cincinnati. And then both the men's and women's soccer team off to good starts. Coach Izzo Brown and them had a big win last night on the road over a top 25 team, and then Coach Stratford and his bunch, I think they've tied two top 25 teams, and I think High Point was even maybe in the top 10 in the country. So want to congratulate all of them on their start. Got to experience the backyard brawl myself and my family. That was awesome. We didn't wade into the deep ends of the blue lot, but I did tiptoe my toe in the water and got to experience that, and that was an awesome game. Obviously, they got a big game this weekend against Utah at home, and so looking forward to that as always. So, with that, we shoot away.
So, Coach, I mean, you've had this team in some form since the summer, but now you're really going, and everybody pretty much is here. So, just general overview of how you're fitting all the new pieces together.
Yeah, it's been I think they've established like really good routines as a group. It's a hard-working group. They really support each other. They've allowed us to coach them hard and direct, and still a lot of learning, but we've kind of transitioned to the phase where I like to call it like at least we're making some new mistakes. Instead of, you want to get to the point where you're not making the same mistakes, let's make some new mistakes, which I think they've done a good job of that. And just, again, it's a fun group to be around. It's an enjoyable group to work with on a daily basis, and they're getting better. Some guys that have made some really, big strides, like Big Harlan, his body, the work that he and Coach Martinez put into his body this summer, came in pushing 300. Now he's around 267 and did it the right way. Lost, bad weight and put on some muscle mass. And all those guys have really worked hard in that area. So,
found anything out about guys that maybe even from the recruiting side you didn't know? I'm sure that happens a lot when you actually get them on the floor, right?
Yeah, Not so much yet. I think when you really start learning about yourself is when you get to play other people. Until you actually get out there and put your entire group together and play another group. I think that's, you can get better. You can learn what you're trying to do, but I think you got to start playing other people before you can like really figure your team out.
I want to ask you, because this summer I saw something Kelvin Sampson said about guys playing. And I guess the quote was, you can work on basketball, but you need to play basketball. I don't know if you saw that. Some dad asking, he said, well, my kid got 500 shots up. He said, what was against there? Are kids playing enough today?
That's a great question, and I think when I was playing, or, not that long ago, or you played more. You didn't work out as much. You played. So if you were going back to the gym at night, you were going to play 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4. You weren't like necessarily going and kind of working on a specific skill. I think the difference is now they play so much, but in a controlled environment, and so because if you're playing AAU, immediately, that coach is going to try to win. So he's going to try to figure out how to win with that team, and they're going to be very specific with what each player is doing to try to help that team win, as opposed to kind of organically getting together and learning how to play basketball, and going to like a park or a recreation center like we did. And if you lost, you probably didn't get to play anymore for maybe the rest of the day. You had to sit there for an hour till you got your turn, and if you were causing your team to lose games, that you weren't ever going to get picked again.
Right. I mean, there's the meritocracy, right? If you miss an open shot, you better go get the rebound.
Yeah.
Or if you make it, you're going to get the ball again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are things that. And Mark, I asked Mark Kellogg about that, and he said, well, losing doesn't hurt as much because you're going to play a game at 4 o'clock. You lose one at 9. Do you see that? Does that show up with young players today?
Yeah, I definitely think that's part of it. And like I said, it's in such a controlled. They're always in a very controlled environment. Whereas I think not that long ago, again, you were playing at call it pickup games. You're playing at the rec, you're playing at parks, you're playing at open gyms in high school, and you called next. And when it was your time, you picked who you thought could go win. And if, like I said, if you weren't, you didn't get to just play because you should get to play. You actually had to earn your right on to it. And so there's a balance. I mean, there's a yin and a yang to everything. There's good and bad. Certainly a lot of good that comes with those things as well. But, I do think more often than not, nowadays, when players get in the gym, they're getting in it to work on a specific skill as opposed to just playing the game itself.
With Arlen, what differences have you noticed from him? Obviously, you could watch him on film last year, but now that you're seeing him with the weight loss.
Yeah, the first thing that jumps out to you is just the way he looks, and then being able to be lighter, lighter on his feet. He's always had incredible hands and incredible feet. He was a high-end football player coming out of high school. So he's got great touch, great hands, great feet, and now he's just able to be a little lighter on his second jump, and then it allows him to play longer stretches of quality basketball.
With the things, with the quick time frame you have in looking at transfer portal candidates, what are the most important things that you're looking at initially that says, yes, I'm interested in him, yes, we've got to get him in?
Yeah, there's got to be a baseline talent, that you're looking for, obviously. But what we've really tried to identify, for the most part, is that people that had, again, been part of winning, that know what winning looks like, that have been part of winning teams. Because typically, if you're on a championship level team or a championship level program, that you understand that it's not necessarily just about you, and you have some understanding of what it takes to win, instead of teaching somebody kind of the universal traits that lend itself to winning. Toughness, competitiveness, selflessness. So we really did try to identify that with the portal class, and then now, I mentioned this in the last press conference, now you're just trying to merge those people that know how to win and they've been part of winning. Now we got to figure out how we're going to win together here, which may be a little different than at the previous places, which is part of it.
Doesn't necessarily have to be perfect fits for your system or things that you'd necessarily like to do.
I think personality traits and competitiveness, and people that like legitimately love the game of basketball and love other people are kind of non-negotiable type traits. And then other things, because of the nature of all sports, you're not going to be necessarily married to a strict ideology of like, hey, this is how we have to play, because you don't have the luxury of building it that way necessarily. You have things that you're not gonna bend on, that, hey, like, this is what we're going to do regardless of who's in the uniform. But then once you get those guys, it's more about, again, like with our team, like, okay, like figure out what's going to give this team the best chance to win on a nightly basis.
I'm intrigued by the idea that putting together a team from scratch, going into not going into an AAU game, going into the Big 12. What is the goal? I mean, you can't be say I'm going to win the Big 12 my first year here with first year players of mine. What kind of timetable? What kind of goals do you set?
Well, I got to push back a little bit on that, because that is the mindset. Now, as we know, it's difficult to win one game in the Big 12. It's difficult to win a college basketball game, period, let alone 20 games, let alone championships, let alone national championships. So it is difficult, and it's not lost on me how difficult it is. But at the same time, I think there is a way to win each game that you play, and starting with, our opener, our exhibition game. Like, you're really just trying to figure out, like, okay, like, how can we how can we win this game? Your big picture goals are, obviously, we do want to win a national championship. We do want to win Big 12 championships. That is the ultimate goal. But in that short term, right now, I'm just trying to get our guys to, sprint back on defense and call ball and stay in a stance. That's the micro level. Macro, that is the big goal, and that is what our goals are. And you got to believe in it, and that's what we want to do. It's what
the success in the first year slide up and down depending upon how you develop.
I don't think so. I could be singing a different tune, but I'm just not necessarily wired in a way that sits back and can quantify right now. This year one, so it'll take a little time, and just not necessarily. I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be challenging, but whether you're in year one or year 3 or year 4 or year 5, you're in one of the best basketball leagues in the entire country, if not the best basketball league in the country. So it's going to be difficult every year.
Have you seen enough from these guys to begin thinking about roles? I know you can let that play out and see what guys can't do. Are you beginning to work on that?
Slowly, slowly but surely. Start figuring out strengths and what's going to be the strength of this team. Who individually, like you said, how can we get guys to play to their strengths and away from their weaknesses? How do you enhance someone's strengths and improve their weaknesses? But again, when you're talking about putting it all together, then we've got to figure out, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get your team to understand what is going to be good for us. So much of everything in the recruiting process and even in the summer a little bit is devoted to the individual. When you're recruiting them, they're trying to make a decision what's best for them. And then a lot of the summer you're trying to improve individual performance, and then you start slowly but gradually kind of merging it into, hey, is this a good shot for player A is a good shot for us? That shot for player B may not be that good of a shot for us.
You're still letting guys take shots that you're going to say in a couple weeks, are you still letting it play out a little bit?
A little, not, again, we've got a smart group, a very mature group, even the younger players. So I think they have self-awareness is a good trait as well to have, of understanding that, and we try to help them and try to reinforce that through film and data and statistics, and and even the other way. Like I said, there's sometimes you may think this is a really good shot for a player, and then you look at the data and it's not, and you thought it was, I thought it was, or vice versa. You could be because it is an emotional game. And even as coaches sometimes can be emotional, and you can get caught up in the ball going in the basket or not going in, and then that can determine how you feel about it. But sometimes how you feel about it isn't necessarily the truth.
I'm kind of interested. You were talking a few minutes ago about what you're kind of looking for in the portal, and I imagine in some sense there's great temptations to look at stats or look at a guy on film and say, okay, well, I need 3 guys who scored 20 a game, and another guy who averaged 12 rebounds. It seems like part of that other process takes more. Some of the stuff you're talking about you can't find on film, I guess. And so, is there a great temptation that you have to overcome? And then, the second part, is there a way to really win the portal? Do you have a system to win in the portal?
Yeah, I think to answer the first part of your question, I think you ask difficult questions. Don't not ask questions that you may not want to know the answer to. And I really encourage our staff as a whole, and because it is hard. You may find a player that fits a lot of the physical attributes and a lot of the talent level, but then if you can skip over some of the more difficult question. Hey, what's he like when things aren't going his way? What's he like in the locker room? How's he respond to difficult coaching? How's he respond to difficult situations? And so I think you can the best you can you can find out. You know, it's a very small, ironic, it's a small profession. You know, it's a small circle. So I think kind of asking those questions and then asking them to people that you trust will give you, accurate assessments of the players that you're recruiting. And then, as far as like you said, a formula that I believe in when you're recruiting the portal, and I think it gets back to what the makeup of the individuals, assuming that there's a baseline talent. You can't go win, the Kentucky Derby with a donkey, So there is a baseline talent requirement that is necessary. But on top of that, I think you can mindset is equally as important sometimes as like physical attributes.
Thought process when it comes to the portal, I imagine it's kind of been refined over the years. Like when it first opened, it was probably like willy-nilly and guys are just grabbing guys. I imagine there's a lot more homework now than maybe when it first opened, or maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think there was always been, I would hope again that, if you were bringing someone into your program, that you would know what you're bringing in. I think the temptation for all of us, it is a talent business, so you can get tempted by talent and you think, hey, I can be the guy that can, be the one to reach this kid. And there are cases of that as well. New environments aren't always, a bad thing for a lot of different reasons. But I think it's probably like going on maybe the third or fourth year of the portal, but yeah, it's definitely just, I think you got to try to know the individual, that you're bringing in.
Ross, you have conceivably like a functional rotation of older players, but you acquired some freshmen too late in the game for a purpose, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
What room is there? What role is there for young players on a team that's situated like that?
Yeah, both those guys like DJ and Amir, even though they didn't come from the portal, they fit a lot of the same qualities that we were talking about. And I think that's what gives a young player the opportunity to play. Yes, there's a physical requirement, but a lot of it is mental, and the mental makeup and the mental maturity and the ability to process information. And I just told our team just now when we got off practice, DJ Thomas, what is going to ultimately give him a chance to be a very, very good player for a long time is his ability to listen and then comprehend and do, which sounds simple, but it's hard. And listening is a skill itself. Like running and jumping, so is listening. And both those guys are incredible listeners, which allows them to get better. And they both, have won a lot. I mean, DJ played on a very, very good high school team, won a lot of games. Amir won a couple state championships, was part of an undefeated team his junior year. And so now it's just about, again, getting caught to the speed and the physicality. But from a maturity standpoint, both those guys are really, really mature. Jaden's a mature player as too. But those two guys in particular, have really jumped out in that regard.
Then when you're going through your exploration process of what do these guys do well and how can you situate them to do that? It's very easy with college players because they know how to do it too. They have so new for high school players. How do you figure out what they do well? How do they figure out what they do well? And is it not immediate? Does it have to happen over time? They have to fall in and get up sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's for all of us. There will be. We're never going to play a perfect game. Like I like to say, you just need to have perfect intentions when you step out there. Your heart has to be in the right place. Your mind has to be in the right place. But you're going to make mistakes. And how quickly can you move on to the next play? How quickly can you move on from that mistake? But again, both those guys played at pretty high level high schools, have been coached well, have been taught well. And really, when if you step out there and watch us play, they don't look like freshmen while they're out there playing.
What do guys like Trayson and Honor Huff, obviously you have a defensive background, but what are those guys who averaged more than 15 points last season? What do they bring to the offensive side?
Yeah, I mean, their shot making ability, and both the range that they can shoot it with creates a lot of space and it opens up a lot of space for the other players on the floor. Both those guys have, a gravitational pull that you have to know where they are on the floor, because if you make a mistake for a half a second, I mean, the ball's in their hand and out of their hand, and they shoot it at a really good clip. And both those guys are also underrated passers. They're good passers and unselfish in their own way. I want them to be more selfish, honestly. I mean, they're unselfish players, and I'm usually on them about if they can see the rim, they need to shoot it, but both of them can get on rolls. They can really make shots.
Go ahead.
You mentioned earlier about asking tough questions to players in the portal. Did you learn just as much if a player, maybe their parent or whoever, asks a tough question back to you guys?
Yeah, I actually really respect that, and encourage that in the recruiting process, as well as when they get on campus. I'm always telling them I want them to ask. I want them to be able to ask difficult questions, whether it's in the recruiting process or here, and then it's just like, okay, like you ask the question, I provide the answer, and then we got to move forward, and you may not always like the answer that you're getting, but sometimes guys don't want to ask the question because they don't want to get the answer. They just want to be able to kind of create a narrative in their own brain as to why things aren't going the way that maybe they want it to go. Whereas if you ask, even on that side, if you ask, we can tell you, And sometimes I may not like the answer I get either, but that's part of, it's like when you leave that room, whether it's in the recruiting process or even once they're here, you got to go out and you got to be a unified front. And you got to be moving in the same direction.
Ross, when you talk about getting experienced guys, does that show up now? Like, I imagine they already know how to get the most out of a practice or a workout or how to take care of themselves. Does that show up like this early?
Yeah, it does, because like you said, they've been part of quality programs, and they have a baseline understanding of what a college day feels like. Taking care of their academics, lifting, sleeping, eating, getting treatment, and like you said, there's usually a process that comes along with that. When you talk about young players, again, like those guys are at that age, like they just can put their shoes on and they can just go play, and really learning how to take care of your body. Usually with young players, the first thing they kind of embrace is the weight room, because their body starts changing and they can see the physical changes in their body. They like that. And then the next thing that usually comes that they learn is they learn how important treatment is, taking care of their body, post and pre-treatment, getting rest. And then usually the last thing to come, which I'm sure we all struggle with right now, is their diet, and that's usually kind of the evolution of a college player. But so yeah, just knowing what college practices feel like, and obviously every place is a little different, but just understanding that part, understanding that there's going to be tough days, and being able to bounce back the next day is a part of experience and maturity.
People probably think when it's a whole new roster, you're behind the eight ball a little bit, but when you get guys that know how to do all that already, does it put you where you want to be immediately?
Well, you certainly skip some steps, because you would hope that you're not having to spend a lot of time, in teaching them how hard you got to practice at the pace you got to practice with, at the speed. You're just learning what to say. They know they need to be saying something, but again, every program is going to have a little bit different language. There's a lot of universal actions, like a ball screen, but we may call it blue and someone else may call it red. So then it's just now creating those habits from a verbiage standpoint, but you hope you're not having to spend too much time just trying to teach them, like, hey, this is how hard you got to practice.
Coach, this being your first year at the big Power 5 or whatever it's called. Any kind of reaction to when the conference schedule got, kind of your first time seeing it laid out like that? Just any kind of reaction to seeing it for the first time?
Yeah, I thought it was cool to be opening the entire Big 12 slate, on a Friday. I think we're the standalone Big 12 game on that first Friday, so that kind of jumped out as a unique opportunity. Obviously, a incredible, challenging place to play, a great program, great environment, and but yeah, just I know it's like cliche-ish, and I know you're probably like everybody's gonna eye roll it, but I do think it can be overwhelming if you're gonna look at the totality of it. So I don't do that. I don't do that, because you can spend too much time putting energy into, because you don't know what's going to be the situation on this particular game they're going to be difficult. They're all going to be difficult. You know that. But as far as, injuries and who's playing well and who isn't and what's happening, like that part you don't know until you're actually there. And so really try to again, I know it's like everybody's going to be eye rolling, all right, let me get the coach's cliche book. But it really is, you're trying to take it, like I said, I'm just trying to get our guys to be in a stance and call ball right now, let alone go to Ames or, and really just try to take it, just try to win every game, and we respect every opponent on our schedule, whether it's home or road or Power 5, Power 4, however you want to group it. I mean, everybody's going to have our respect. We're not fearful of anyone, but we certainly respect every team that when you step onto that court. And that's what's good about sports. Like I said, I've said it last time, is doesn't matter what anybody thinks. Doesn't matter what I think. Doesn't matter what we all think in here. Like, the only thing that actually matters is what happens when you step on the floor that night against that team.
Mindful that it's September right now, and in 6 months it's March, and you're going to be doing this for 6 months. And I guess what you hear from people is that the teams that are successful have, Urban Meyer says, grown-ass men.
Yeah.
And that season kind of filters that out, doesn't it?
It does, man. It's a journey. I've always, seasons really are like spiritual journeys in their own way. The highs are high, the lows are low, and there's a little bit of everything in between, and you're taking a group, and it's like you're running a marathon, but it's at a sprinter's pace, especially nowadays because of the newness of rosters, and you really are like every day matters. Not that they didn't before, but there's such a importance to get something done on a daily basis that you can walk away from feeling like, hey, well, at least we got a little better in this area. And it goes by really fast. That's another advantage of having some of those seniors that you've talked about. They know that in their hourglass that sand at the bottom is a lot thicker than the sand at the top. And so there should be a daily urgency with how they approach everything. But you just know that there's going to be ups and downs, and every team's going to face some level of adversity, whether it's through tough losses or injuries or things that people don't even know about, and like how you handle those ultimately in a lot of ways can determine what type of season you have.
How is Jacksonville progressing?
Go ahead.
So how is Jacksonville progressing, and what all can he do right now?
Yeah, he's so he can run. Obviously, he was never impacted from that area. He can shoot. You got to be. He still is a couple weeks away from getting the pins out of his wrist, but he has started. It's his non-shooting hand, which is a blessing, and so he is shooting. He really tries to mimic as many drills as he can offensively and defensively without a ball, because you don't want like a random ricochet or something to hit his thumb. But that's kind of where he is progressing well. Things are trending positively.
Also in the cliche area, for a coach coming to his first P4 job, you're supposed to see new facilities, improvements, more support, things like that. Any of those things here that changed the way that you ran your operations thing allow you to be more efficient?
As far as which way when you talk about efficiency?
With the program, your practices, your whole schedules.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. We've always had. We were fortunate. I mean, I think that's probably a correlation as to why we were able to have the success that we were. At North Texas, we always had great people around us, and whether it was student assistants, graduate assistants, a great staff. And that hasn't changed that much. I think I mentioned it the last time we had a program. I mean, the biggest change is, the external pull on myself, mainly, and then even just that part of the job is different, But as far as like the basketball part itself, that doesn't feel that much different, to be honest, yet.
First practice was Tuesday?
Yeah. I mean, kind of. It was like practice 38, if we're being honest. But,
Right, sure.
but the first official, when you enter into your, 30 practices before your 42 days before your first official game with 30 practices, that was one of them. And then you get more hours now. We went from 8 hours to 20 hours a week. So you get to kind of add another day, but in some form or fashion, the way that it is nowadays. I mean, it doesn't feel like the old days when you had like Midnight Madness and it was like, oh, this is the first day we actually get to practice with our team. It's more of a time stamp now that like, okay, in a couple weeks you will be playing a closed-door scrimmage and you will be having an exhibition, and it kind of is just a time marker that you're getting closer than like an actual feeling different out there on the floor.
So as far as if there's any kind of like moments of, being a head coach again, that probably happened a while back then, I imagine, or was there any moments like that for you in the first?
Not necessarily, because like maybe our first workout, it's just different now because you're with your team all summer.
Right.
So really, like maybe the first time you're actually out there with the team here, you're a little bit like, man, it just felt like we were literally just played a game about 2 weeks ago. But so that was a little kind of odd. But now you're settled into the routine, and other than adding a Saturday practice to it, we're pretty uniform with our Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday. Now you add a Saturday and take Sunday off is kind of your practice schedule.
Ross, when you're in the portal and there's so many players that you need, there's so many players who are out there, how challenging or confusing is it when you have to say, like, is this guy going to be eligible?
Well, that's kind of where you start. You got to get to that question pretty quickly, especially with these older players. If it's for instance, if it's a fourth-year senior or a fifth-year senior that hasn't acquired their bachelor's degree, one of the first things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get that transcript evaluated to make sure that you can take enough hours to meet the requirement of their progress towards a degree. So you got to.
College thing was confusing for everybody too, and
yeah,
how many years
as far as who's going to have, and some of that's still going on, as we know. So that's kind of been the challenging thing is, trying to get some level of understanding of what is this thing going to look like, what are the eligibility requirements going to be, because we've tried to have some. It feels like every time they've kind of tried to say these are going to be the rules that you're going to play by, then something changes.
With Chance, you ultimately get him clear, but that was. If you look at it, technically the rules should have applied where he wouldn't have gotten here. But you guys go through the whole paperwork process too. Did you know coming in that he was good? He might be good. He wasn't good. How did that start and go?
There were some precedents, and I think that's what you're kind of looking for when you're looking for anything that you're going to have to file a waiver through. You're going to look for precedent with the NCAA that maybe there were some similar cases, and we felt like similar cases that were his with the precedent set with the support that he had from his previous schools, which is a big one, that there was a good chance, no pun intended, that what happened was going to happen.
There's a good chance that he's an important part of your plan.
He
It
is.
seems like he fits so many ways for you too. How much, silly question, but how much better are you with him than without him?
Yeah, I mean, he gives you a lot of versatility out there, and gives you the ability to play bigger because you can play him at the wing, and you can play bigger lineups, or you can play smaller with him and kind of go with maybe a small ball kind of lineup where he's at the 4. But he's an incredible rebounder, very good in the open floor and transition, and just has a physicality associated with him.
Is that kind of versatility important when you're doing a team from scratch? Because I imagine you can think like now, like, hey, these 5 guys would work, but then you get them out there and maybe it doesn't. Is it versatile important, just like, oh, okay, we'll bump him up to the 3 and maybe that'll work, or we'll move him down?
Yeah, I think that's what the best teams kind of have different ways to win games. And I think, again, with you have a versatile offensive lineup or you have versatile defensive lineups, that gives you different ways that you can play and different ways to win. And the more ways you have to win, the better.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it.